Welcome to Decoded Daily. This deep dive is brought to you by Idea Data, your source for AI and tech insights. Today, we're going to be diving into a question with some major implications for businesses and investors. Has AI innovation hit a wall? We got articles from Business Insider, Inc., Magazine, Gartner, and a whole bunch more, all kind of shedding light on OpenAI's recent strategic shifts and what they signal for the future of AI.
Interesting that you frame it as AI innovation hitting a wall. What we're seeing from these sources is maybe more like a course correction. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman, he's acknowledged that while the fundamental principles of AI, what he calls scaling laws, might be predetermined, the practical limits, the constants, are very much in human hands.
So it's not that AI can't get any smarter, it's that simply throwing more computing power at the problem might not be the most efficient way forward.
Precisely. There are several factors at play here, and the Inc. magazine piece does a pretty good job of outlining them. The scarcity of GPUs, for instance, which are essential for training these massive AI models, is a major bottleneck. And then there's just the organizational complexity of managing these huge projects.
I can imagine. It's like trying to orchestrate a symphony with thousands of musicians all playing different instruments. At some point, adding more musicians might just create chaos instead of beautiful music.
That's a great analogy. And that's why OpenAI seems to be shifting gears. They're focusing more on optimizing existing models, making them more efficient, more adaptable, rather than just building bigger and bigger ones. And maybe even more importantly, they're looking at collaboration as a key strategy moving forward.
Now, this is where things start to get really interesting from a business perspective. If OpenAI is looking to partner up, what does that mean for other players in the AI space? Could this create opportunities for smaller companies or startups?
Absolutely. OpenAI's shift towards collaboration could be a real game changer for the whole AI ecosystem. It could level the playing field, allowing smaller companies with specialized expertise to contribute to the development of, cutting-edge AI. Imagine startups specializing in model optimization or data security or even ethical AI governance, partnering up with giants like OpenAI to bring their unique skills to the table.
This sounds like a potential goldmine for entrepreneurs who are savvy about AI and its applications. But let's zoom out a bit and look at the broader internet landscape. There's a rather unsettling concept that's been making the rounds lately: the enshittification of the internet.
Yes, the 9-meter article really dives into that, and it's a wake-up call for anybody who cares about the future of the internet. Essentially, it describes how online platforms, driven by short-term profits, end up prioritizing features and content that ultimately degrade the user experience. It's like a slow but steady decline in quality, like a kind of digital decay.
And what are some of the consequences of this enshittification? Is it just about annoying ads and clickbait? Or is there a deeper impact?
It goes much deeper than that. Think about how social media algorithms often prioritize content that generates outrage or controversy, even if it's harmful or misleading. Or how e-commerce platforms prioritize sellers who pay for premium placement, making it harder for smaller businesses to compete. The long-term consequences can be a decline in trust, a rise in misinformation, and just a stifling of innovation and creativity.
It's almost as if the very fabric of the internet, the idea of a free and open platform for sharing information and connecting people, being eroded. But amidst this rather bleak picture, is there any hope? Are there any signs of a counter-movement, a push for a more ethical and user-centric internet?
That's where it gets exciting from an entrepreneurial perspective. We're seeing a growing wave of startups and innovators building alternatives to these big platforms that prioritize privacy, transparency, and user empowerment.
So while the giants might be heading down a path of enshittification, there's an opportunity for smaller players to step in and build something better.
That's exactly right. Think about decentralized social networks that give users control over their data, or content platforms that reward creators fairly and prioritize quality over clickbait. There's a real hunger for alternatives. And this presents a massive opportunity for those who can deliver on the promise of a better online experience.
This all ties in beautifully with another trend that's emerging from our sources, which is a shift in focus beyond the hype of generative AI. The Gartner hype cycle for AI, for instance, highlights several less hyped but potentially impactful trends.
Yeah, and one of the most intriguing ones is the rise of retrieval augmented generation, which the Business Daily article mentions. It's basically about combining the creative power of generative AI with the vast knowledge base accessible through search and retrieval systems. It's like giving AI a library card and teaching it how to do research.
So instead of just generating text or images based on its internal knowledge, AI can now tap into a vast external database of information,
Yeah.
making it much more knowledgeable and accurate.
Yeah. Precisely. This has huge implications for businesses that rely on data-driven decision-making. Imagine AI systems that can analyze market trends, customer behavior, or scientific research. With like unprecedented depth and accuracy, the possibilities are really exciting.
And speaking of possibilities, there's another trend that's caught my eye, and it involves a major player stepping into the world of 5G. LG Electronics.
Yes, the KED Global article highlights this development, and it's particularly interesting because it signals a broader trend of businesses seeking more control over their network infrastructure.
Okay.
LG is focusing on private 5G networks, which offer enhanced security, reliability, and customization compared to public networks.
So it's not just about faster internet for your phone. It's about creating custom-built networks tailored to the specific needs of businesses and industries.
You got it. And this is where the concept of digital twin technology comes in. LG is particularly keen on leveraging private 5G networks to enable the development and deployment of digital twins.
Digital twins. Now, that sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie.
It might sound futuristic, but it's very much a reality. A digital twin is essentially a virtual representation of a physical asset, process, or system. Imagine creating a digital replica of a factory, a city, or even a human body. Wow. This allows you to run simulations, analyze data, and optimize performance in a virtual environment before implementing changes in the real world.
So it's like having a virtual sandbox where you can experiment and test different scenarios without any real-world risks.
That's a great way to put it. And 5G is essential for this because it provides the ultra-low latency and high bandwidth needed to create real-time responsive digital twins.
This is blowing my mind. But how exactly does all this translate into business opportunities? Where do entrepreneurs fit into this picture?
The opportunities are vast. As 5G infrastructure expands and digital twin technology matures, we'll see a surge in demand for companies that specialize in building and managing digital twins for various industries. Think about software developers who create digital twin platforms, data analysts who extract insights from digital twin data, or even consultants who help businesses implement and leverage digital twin technology effectively. The key takeaway here is that we're at an inflection point. The tech landscape is evolving rapidly, and those who can anticipate and adapt to these changes will be the ones who thrive. Pay attention to the convergence of different technologies. Look for opportunities to bridge the gap between the digital and physical worlds, and always keep human-centered design and ethical considerations at the forefront.
And never underestimate the power of collaboration. Whether it's OpenAI partnering with smaller players in the AI space, or businesses coming together to create a more ethical internet, the future belongs to those who can work together to create solutions that benefit everyone.
That's a profound insight. And it leads us perfectly into the next part of our deep dive, where we'll explore another major trend that's reshaping the business landscape, the integration of biodiversity considerations into business models.
We really unpack some major shifts happening in tech, AI course-correcting, the internet's enshittification, and the rise of ethical tech. It's a lot to process, but I think what really struck me is this idea of convergence, of how different technologies and ideas are starting to blend together. It's like we're on the verge of something entirely new.
You're absolutely right. And this convergence isn't just happening within the tech world, it's reaching out into like every facet of our lives, from how businesses operate to how we interact with the natural world. This brings us to a trend that's been gaining a lot of traction lately, particularly in the wake of COP29. Integrating biodiversity considerations into business models.
I'm fascinated by this. In part one, you mentioned nature-based solutions. Can you elaborate on what those are and what kind of business opportunities they might offer?
Absolutely. Nature-based solutions are basically ways of addressing societal challenges by harnessing the power of nature. Think of it as working with nature rather than against it.
Okay.
For example, instead of building concrete seawalls to protect coastlines from erosion, you might restore mangrove forests, which not only act as natural barriers but also provide habitats for a variety of species. Or, instead of relying solely on synthetic fertilizers, you might invest in regenerative agriculture practices that improve soil health and enhance biodiversity.
So it's not just about minimizing environmental impact. It's about actively seeking ways to regenerate and restore nature, while creating economic value.
Exactly. And this is where the business opportunities lie. We're seeing a surge in companies that specialize in implementing nature-based solutions. Some are focused on restoring ecosystems. Think of companies that plant trees, restore wetlands, or create urban green spaces. Others are developing innovative products and services that leverage natural processes. Imagine companies that create bio-based materials from agricultural waste, design buildings that mimic natural ecosystems, or develop sustainable food systems that enhance biodiversity.
These all sound like incredible opportunities, but I imagine there must be challenges as well.
Mhm.
How do you measure the value of biodiversity? And how do you convince businesses that investing in nature is a good business decision?
Those are great questions, and they highlight some of the key hurdles that need to be overcome. Measuring the value of biodiversity is indeed complex. It's not as straightforward as calculating carbon emissions or financial returns. We need better metrics and frameworks to assess the ecological and economic benefits of nature-based solutions. There's a lot of research and innovation happening in this space, but we need to move faster.
So, there's a need for more data, more research, and perhaps even a shift in mindset among investors and business leaders.
Absolutely. We need to move beyond the traditional view of nature as simply a resource to be exploited and embrace a more holistic view that recognizes the interconnectedness of ecological and economic systems. The good news is that there's growing awareness of this, particularly among younger generations, and this is driving a shift in consumer preferences and investor behavior.
It sounds like we're on the cusp of a major paradigm shift, one that could fundamentally change how we do business and interact with the planet. But this shift will require more than just good intentions. We need concrete actions, scalable solutions, and a willingness to embrace new ways of thinking.
I couldn't agree more. And this brings us back to the theme of convergence that we touched on earlier. The solutions to these complex challenges won't come from any single technology or sector. They will emerge from the intersection of different disciplines, from the collaboration between scientists, entrepreneurs, policymakers, and communities.
It's about connecting the dots, seeing the bigger picture, and working together to create a future that is not only technologically advanced, but also ecologically sustainable and socially just.
Well said. And that's precisely what we'll be exploring in the final part of our deep dive. We'll delve into the potential implications of these converging trends and discuss how businesses, investors, and individuals can navigate this exciting yet challenging new landscape. It's been quite a journey, hasn't it? From AI's course correction to the internet's enshittification and the rise of ethical tech. We've covered a lot of ground. And then exploring nature-based solutions and their potential to reshape business models. It's clear that the tech landscape is going through a really profound transformation.
Absolutely, and I think what's most striking is a sense of interconnectedness. We're not just talking about isolated trends anymore. It's about how these trends are converging, creating a ripple effect across industries. But as we head into this new era of tech, what does it all mean for businesses and individuals? What are the key takeaways that our listeners should be thinking about?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And I think one of the most important takeaways is that the future is not something that just happens to us. It's something we create. We have agency. We have choices to make. And those choices will shape the trajectory of technological development.
So it's not just about passively observing these trends, it's about actively engaging with them and shaping them.
Exactly. Whether you're an entrepreneur, an investor, or just someone who cares about the future, you have a role to play. And that role starts with understanding the forces at play, the trends that are shaping the landscape, and the opportunities and challenges they present.
What are some of the biggest hurdles that entrepreneurs and innovators might face in this new landscape?
One of the biggest challenges is just the sheer pace of change. The tech world is moving at lightning speed, and it can be overwhelming to keep up, let alone stay ahead of the curve. This is where continuous learning and adaptability become crucial skills. Be curious, stay informed, and be willing to experiment and iterate.
So it's about embracing the unknown and being comfortable with uncertainty.
Absolutely. And it's also about building strong networks and collaborations. The solutions to these complex challenges won't come from any single individual or company. They'll come from the collective wisdom and effort of diverse minds working together.
That brings us back to this idea of convergence, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's about breaking down silos, bridging disciplines, and creating a more interconnected and collaborative ecosystem.
Exactly. And it's not just about technology, it's about people. It's about fostering a culture of innovation, inclusivity, and ethical responsibility.
This has been such an insightful conversation. As we wrap up our deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought. We've talked about AI, the internet, nature-based solutions, and the convergence of these trends. But ultimately, it's not just about technology. It's about humanity. It's about using our ingenuity, our creativity, and our compassion to build a future that is both technologically advanced and deeply human.